Well, hey friends, so if you've watched my videos before, do you notice anything, I don't know, particularly different about this shot? You might, maybe. Well, I just want to point out that today we are actually recording on this camera, which is an Obsbot Tail Air. And honestly, I want to kind of just break the mold down here because something that I want to talk about today is we are so ingrained as videographers to always be shooting on mirrorless cameras and always be shooting on the 4K 10-bit quality that we can get. But I want to pop out some scenarios here of why that might not always be the best case and where are these PTZ cameras best used for. You see, this is my Sony a7 IV that I typically do all of these talking headshots to YouTube with because this camera typically sits right where that camera is and we typically film everything on this. But it's a great setup. It is. I like it. It works really well for what I do. However, what I'm about to show you is Southbridge Church. Now, this is where I've been going to church for about a year now. And the thing with this church is it's a relatively small church, relatively low budget on the worship team side. And so we don't have a full camera crew and somebody fully running all the live streams and somebody who is full-time at the soundboard. What we typically have is multiple PTZ cameras around kind of the room and the stage. And the person on the soundboard is running the live stream from different PTZ cameras, remote controlling them, and running it for our live stream. And it works out really, really well. And that's where this, which is the Obsbot Tail Air, is probably going to absolutely shine. See, I'm gonna be headed back to the church this afternoon, actually, get this camera set up with our system, run you through kind of what the cable setups we're using and the switcher that we're using and things like that. So we wanna see how does this Obsbot Tail Air fit into our workflow. First, a little quick unboxing. You get this cool carrying case, which, as some of you know how I feel about carrying cases, meh, sometimes I just throw them in the thing. But with this camera, we might be traveling with it a little bit more, so it's nice to have a carrying case. Up next, you get this USB-C to dual USB-C connector. That way you can run power and run something else out of your USB-C. USB-C to USB-A, cool. And then a 6-foot USB-C to USB-C cable. Not much in the box, keeps it pretty simple, but we're actually gonna be running this camera. But there's actually a multitude of ways that you can run this camera. You see, before I even started recording on this nifty little phone app right here, before I even started recording, it basically pulled me through and said, hey, where do you wanna stream this to? Do you wanna stream to YouTube, to Twitch, to all these different network streamings, or do you wanna just record directly to the SD card? So I chose the SD card because, well, that's what I'm doing with this entire setup. But this offers so many ways to get your footage directly to the network. However, our church setup that we're going to run this through is actually a full HDMI setup because we're running things a lot to HDMI. But this camera also has an HDMI out. So we're going to run it several hundred feet away from our switcher, run it through a wireless HDMI signal, and then send that wireless HDMI signal over to our ATEM switcher. So I'm excited to show you guys all what that is about, but this is a little first look at the Obsbot Tail Air. What do you think of the quality? Let me know. Let's go show you how we use it. Okay, hold on. Maybe I need to be a little bit more clear. You see, if I'm filming something and it's just me filming something, I'm going to choose a mirrorless camera handheld 100% of the time. But if I'm filming, say, an event, long-form content like church service, possibly even full wedding ceremony, all by myself, multiple PTZ cameras that one person can control will almost always be better. So that's exactly what we're doing today. Setting up for a church service where I've got a 3-camera setup, all PTZ cameras, and we're gonna see where this Obsbot Tail Air fits in best. Because it doesn't have a zoom, we're gonna have to kind of find a good placement for it, and I really want kind of an accent shot of different either keyboard player or drummer, or just a different accent shot in general. So I think that's where we're gonna go with this camera. But I'm excited to check it out. I'm getting the wireless HDMI all set up now, and then we'll see exactly how it works with our setup. All right, before we get over to the church, I just want to show you how simple this setup is. There is an internal battery in this camera, but I do have it plugged in just to charge. In this little mini HDMI out port, we have going to an HDMI wireless transmitter. Then this wireless transmitter is accepting the signal into this monitor. So everything is set. Don't worry about how weird that looks because it's got some LUT stuff on it. But I just wanted to show you how easy it is to go from HDMI to wireless HDMI to wireless HDMI to your stream server. And that's just because we have an HDMI set up at the church. So I'm going to take it over there and get it set up, and then we'll see how it goes. All right, we are back a few days later with the Obsbot Tail Air after Sunday morning service just went off phenomenally, and it kind of integrated very well with our other PTZ cameras at our church. You see, about a year ago or so, our church just went on Amazon and bought several of the kind of no-name brand PTZ cameras just to help run our live stream. And this integrated well with them, even though it's a quarter of the size of all of those cameras. It integrated well, it set up well, it mixed easily with our ATEM via HDMI out. It just did a lot of things very well. A couple of the positives: image quality was great. We didn't have any frame drops or anything like that, and everything just worked really, really well. See, one of the negatives for us in my situation, which actually might be a positive for you, is that this camera doesn't zoom at all. And I really believe that our stage was probably a little bit too large for a camera like this, because as you can see with the way we have it placed, I have it placed on a light stand, kind of close to or behind a speaker, really close to that keyboard player where we can get a full shot of the keyboard player. And the problem there is because it doesn't zoom, if you have a large stage like we do, it just kind of is in the way or in the middle. And I've seen this work well with a lot of like really small church setups where they've got this camera just setting on a keyboard or on a stand or on somewhere decently close to the subject without it kind of interfering with the congregation or being in the way. So that was pretty much the biggest negative for us. Is yes, you can zoom with it, but it's a very digital zoom and you just have to get this camera decently close to your subject. So this was probably sitting max 6 to 8 feet away, and you can see just how wide the angle was on it. So that's probably the biggest negative that we had. The other thing with this is I know that this camera can do so many different streaming methods that we just weren't using because it's just not how it mixed with our setup. I do appreciate the fact that this camera's got so many different options. It's got the HDMI out, it's got the dual USB-C ports, it can send video over NDI, it can be controlled via NDI. There's so many things in there that we just didn't utilize because I controlled the whole thing from my phone app, and all of the HDMI is what was taking the video signal. So that is one look at the Obsbot Tail Air for your church's live stream or any sort of streaming camera that you might need. This thing is tiny, it's about the size of my hand spread out fully, and it can really kind of fit into a lot of spaces, especially being that it has a built-in internal battery. So where would you use this camera? Do you have any uses for it? Or are you just sticking with the old mirrorless cameras as always? I'm interested to know. Let's keep the conversation going down in the comments below. How would you use the Obsbot Tail Air? Or do you have a need for something like this? So I'll catch you guys on the next video. Lots of videos are coming down the pipeline, and I'm excited to create some more. I'll see you guys soon.